Hello, welcome to Premier Scene. I'm Claire Bueno, where every adventure has a beginning as we attend a fan screening of Bumblebee. Obviously, the film's got lots of action and thrills and spills, but at the heart of it as well, there's this kind of coming-of-age story for a young girl and a friendship. Is that what kind of attracted you to the film?
Yes. I was fortunate enough to be able to read it before I could earn my spot on the roster, and the script read amazing. And it plays even better on screen. Haley did amazing. Travis's vision coming to life it tugs at your heartstrings, and I think that's what's most important and most impactful about the film.
And there's a sense of real stoicism about your character as well. What was it attracted to you to that role when you read the script?
Like I said, when you read something and you're invested in it, I didn't know what I was reading for. I just wanted to be a part of it. And when they approached me about Agent Burns, his character definition is pretty down the barrel. So it was pretty easy. A guy fueled by revenge who is set to eliminate any threat that he feels is a threat to his country. So it's pretty easy.
Do you go into kind of any background research in the military forces?
Well, you're dealing with special forces military, so they're going to operate a little bit different, and you're also dealing with 13-foot transforming robots, so that's a little different. I think the most important thing to do is have open dialogue with your director, because they're the ones that see the movie, and when you can get from them, like, what do you see out of this character, and they can be open and honest with you, I think you can help, as your role, to help the director see his vision.
And with these kind of fight scenes, and it's always closely choreographed, you're used to choreography from your previous incarnation. Does it differ in film? Can you push your boundaries more?
I think as far as action choreography and storytelling, I think there's so much similar in the WWE that is in film. We tell stories. In WWE, we tell stories of good versus evil. That's what Bumblebee is. It's also a story about friendship. So, I mean, yes, I can take those things, but you have to understand live event performing is very big because you perform to the live audience. When you're on that huge screen, it's very small and subtle, and that's been the biggest adjustment, but that's why I have faith in my directors.
And finally, this is a real homage as well to the 1980s. Is that something, child of the 80s yourself, that it's nice to reminisce?
The cool thing is it's very nice to reminisce because I get all the references, so I think I'm kind of in, but it's also good that as a culture, even those people who weren't alive during the 80s, Haley's the lead and she wasn't even alive, but because the period in time has become so nostalgic, we who are living it can live back with fond memories, and those who didn't can look back with interest. So I'm glad the 80s are back.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this is obviously a coming-of-age story, isn't it, for your character? But at the heart of it, there's a story of a deep friendship.
Absolutely, yeah. What's so wonderful about this film is it is a coming-of-age story for my character, but I do feel it's one for everybody in this film. It's a story of friendship and realization, and it deals with loss and heartbreak and struggle and confusion and growing up, feeling misunderstood and unseen. There is so much, there's so many layers, and there's so much going on in this film. So it was wonderful to be able to play to all of that.
It's a physical role, obviously, for you. Can you tell us a little bit more about the pre-production and the training that you had to undergo?
Yeah, I always love a film that has a bit of physical demand, because it requires you to really, focus in that sense and get into a place where you're comfortable and know that you can take on everything that's written on the page. There was a lot of running in this film, a lot of driving, of course, a lot of physical activity. So it was really great to really be able to have that as a component in playing this part.
And you're obviously acting against a robot. How practical was that made, or were you just acting against a tennis ball?
Well, luckily there were a couple different versions of Bumblebee in real life. One being a tennis ball on a stick, which wasn't ideal, but we got used to it. We became friends over time. They did build a sort of head and shoulders of Bee, so that when there was physical contact that needed to be made, I had something to touch. But there was that, and it was a very interesting challenge. I'd never done anything like that, so my imagination was definitely put to the test.
Now, obviously, the film, we've got lots of action that you'd expect from a Transformers film, but to me, the beating heart of it is a film about friendship and a coming-of-age story for a young girl. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a Transformers film, so people come to expect a certain kind of cinematic experience, which is, visual effects and high-octane action sequences, robot fights, and car chases, and we have that, but I think the more important part of this film, and I think maybe the thing that will surprise some people, is how much heart the movie has. It really comes down to this relationship between this girl and this robot, and that really is the beating heart at the center of it, and I believe it's an incredibly sweet, heartwarming story.
It almost feels like it's a young girl with her pet dog.
Yes, in this case, it's a giant 13-foot robot, yes.
And Hayley's character, watching her kind of evolve through the film, she's always remains sort of grounded, doesn't she? She's a real character that you want to buy into and you invest in.
Yeah, I mean, this film does not work without someone who's incredibly strong and a great actor at the core of it, and that's Hailee Steinfeld. She's as good an actor as they come. She's absolutely fearless, and she really brings this girl to life. We crafted her over a period of time, Hailee and the writer Christina and myself, trying to create this character that has a lot of dimension, a lot of layers, who's kind of a broken girl who needs love, who needs healing, who needs this incredible relationship that she ends up getting with Bumblebee.
And then we've also got the film set in the 80s. I have to tell you, the soundtrack's amazing. I grew up in it, and I was transported back. Can you guide us through what made some of those choices the way you did?
What, for the music? Well, I mean, look, there's a treasure trove of songs that you can pull from the 80s. I mean, I was a child of the 80s. I grew up in that era. So, pulling from my own personal favorites, things that were happening in the alternative world, as well as things with the pop and rock songs. It just, music is one of those things that just evokes an emotion as soon as you hear it. It can call back to a time and a place, a sense of nostalgia and emotion. And that really was one of the main strengths, I think, of the process, is being able to pull these great songs and weave it into the movie.
And also, we're going back to an era as well that was heavily utilised. It was practical effects. So did you want to use as practical effects as possible to kind of keep the theme of that era?
As much as possible. I mean, we try to shoot as much stuff in camera as we could. There is a giant, 13-foot robot, which is never going to be practical. That's a CG creation. But as much as you can, we wanted to shoot things in camera. And so, I think it's a hybrid of practical effects and cutting-edge visual effects, which I think gives it a nice little spike.